They called it the transatlantic slave trade. Commerce, they said, but it was the largest and most brutal human trafficking operation in history. A centuries-long crime that stole over 12 million African men, women, and children from their homes, their lands, and their lives, to be shipped across an ocean in chains, packed like cargo into wooden ships that groaned under the weight of suffering. But before the ships came, there was Africa. Not the dark continent they imagined, but a place of kingdoms and scholars, farmers and traders, cities lit by lanterns and minds filled with language and law, places like Timbuktu, Ife, Benin, Dahomey, rich, not just in gold, but in history, culture, and identity. And yet they came first as explorers, then merchants, then colonizers, with muskets, rum, and silver, offering trade, demanding power, setting tribes against each other, fueling conflict and betrayal. Local rulers manipulated or complicit sold captives for weapons and wealth, but few knew what truly lay ahead. The cold stone walls of slave forts like Elmina and Cape Coast, where thousands were held in darkness, stripped of dignity and hope, waiting to be forced through the door of no return, never to see home again. On those ships, the slavers' coffins, they lay chained together, bodies pressed so close there was no room to turn. No air to breathe, no light to remember the sun, and in that stinking, rotting, violent belly of the vessel, death was constant, disease was rampant, and despair soaked every plank. Many didn't survive. Some were thrown overboard, some jumped into the sea, choosing drowning over chains. And the ocean became a mass grave marked by silence and waves, where thousands of unnamed souls still rest. And those who lived. They arrived in the Americas not as people, but as property auctioned, like beasts in open markets, families torn apart, names, race languages lost. From Charleston to Havana, from Brazil to Barbados, they were sold into plantations. Sugar fields, rice paddies, cotton farms, tobacco mills, waking before dawn, whipped through the day, raped in the night, and taught that their worth was counted only in pounds of flesh and pounds of product, and yet they survived. In songs, in stories, in secret gatherings in the woods, they remembered who they were, who they had been, who they could be again. They resisted in rebellion, in running, in teaching their children to hold on to scraps of hope, to carve identity out of brutality, to dream beyond bondage. And when slavery was finally abolished on paper, the chains were replaced by shackles of poverty, racism, prisons, segregation, and the trauma did not vanish. It lived on in generations, forced to rebuild with nothing, forced to live in a world shaped by stolen wealth and rewritten history. They called it abolition, but the exploitation continued, and still continues today. In factories where children sew fast fashion, in brothels where the desperate are trafficked, in cities where laborers toil unpaid and unseen because human trafficking did not end. It just changed costume, changed currency, changed laws while evading justice. And yet we are told to forget, to move on, to let it rest. But how do you forget the screams in the hull? The songs sung in chains, the mothers torn from babies, the nations reshaped by greed. How do you forget when the legacy of that crime lives in our prisons, our neighborhoods, our names, and even in the silence of school books that say so little, so cleanly, so falsely? We do not forget. We cannot forget. We remember the millions, not statistics, not numbers, but lives with dreams and fears and families. We speak for them now. We reclaim their voices. We hold their memory in our hands and say, this happened, this mattered, this shaped the world. And to ignore it is to deny the truth of how the modern age was built, not on freedom, but on forced labor, not on equality, but on exploitation. And so we tell this story, not as history, but as truth. Living truth carried across bloodlines, told in whispers and cries and prayers. This is the truth that the ocean knows, that the land remembers, that the chains could not erase. And it will be told until the world stops pretending it began in liberty, when it was born in captivity.